Hey, this is Katey from KateyLeigh.com, coming to you from my on the road travels. As you can see by my background here, all nice and wrinkly, my sarong from being in my suitcase. But it is a lot more interesting for you guys to look at than just the wardrobe that I have behind me there. So you got to make do with what is around when you are out on the road. And so I wanted to talk today about a label that I've only recently come to terms with as being a huge part of my identity and my purpose on this earth. And that label is light worker. And it took me a long time to come to terms with, first of all, what light worker was and how I wanted to incorporate that into being a part of my identity, because it was a fairly spiritual term when I first came across it, and I didn't quite understand what it was, but done a fair bit of research now and talked to a lot of other spiritual groups and communities, and I really want to share with you today what being a light worker is all about, and perhaps why now more than ever being a light worker is extremely important for our society today. So, light worker. Some people are still a little bit confused about what that term is, just like I was when I first started on my spiritual journey. And before we talk about being a light worker or someone who works with light, what we do need to establish, first of all, is what is light. You know, you hear a lot of people in the spiritual community say things like, oh, love and light, or, you know, focus on the light, stay in the light, things like that. And, you know, at first when I was on my spiritual path, I didn't quite understand what the light was. And so I did a lot of research into it, and it's actually really quite simple. The light is basically not the darkness, to put it bluntly. The light is stepping into your power. The light can be so many different definitions. It really just depends on yourself and what your personal definition of the light. For me, my definition of the light is staying in a place of hope, of power, of peacefulness, of compassion, of tranquility, of bravery, very peaceful, open-minded energy is where I like to define light. So the opposite of light would be shadow, or the shadow aspect you may hear some spiritual people talk about. And the shadow would really be the more negative human emotions or negative energies out there. For example, fear, anxiety, frustration, intimidation, manipulation, hurt. And this dichotomy of having the light and having the darkness is really a man-made construct when you think about it, because there's a full spectrum of emotions within the light and the dark that are completely legitimate. All emotions are legitimate. But if we take love, for example, love can be very much in the light and be very peaceful, nurturing type of love. But love can also be fiery, passionate, strong love, which can bleed more over onto the dark side of things. So the light really just is a light spectrum, right? Like, we know the light is a spectrum. You know, that's why we have the rainbow with all the different light frequencies for every color that we see. And so to me, as I say, that's what the light really is just staying in a place of peace and a place of unconditional love. And so to that end, being a light worker is someone who works with the light, someone who works on bringing more light into this world, someone who focuses on being a light in this world. And one thing that I like to say and take a play off of Gandhi's famous quote, be the change you wish to see in this world is, I like to say, be the light that you wish to see in this world. Right? There is so much anger and so much frustration and so much fear and anxiety out there already that a lot of people are emitting and putting out there with their own intentions, but a lot of people are unintentionally spreading that fear even more by discussing the fear, by sharing that fear on social media, by sharing their frustration on social media. And the example I'm living with right now is the American election that just happened where Donald Trump was elected. And I'm in Thailand right now, so fairly distanced from a lot of the media coverage, but my social media feeds are just full of negativity and anger and people denouncing Donald Trump, yet spreading just as much fear and hate as he does. And so I felt obliged in these times to focus on the positive and focus on spreading more love and making sure there's more love energy being spread out in the world than there is more fear and hate energy. But one thing that's really important, I do want to clarify that being a light worker and working with the light and being a spiritual person doesn't mean that you are being ignorant or ignoring any of the fear, or any of the anger, or any of the anxiety that's out there. Being a light worker and being spiritual is actually being fully aware of the fact that there is all of that negativity out there, but you are choosing to take the positive path so that you're not feeding the negativity monster anymore, that you're feeding the love in this world and the love energy. And so, I caution you when you are following spiritual people or lifestyle mentors who are all about, oh, just stay in the light, be a part of the light, oh, love and light, nothing's going to bother me, I'm just not going to focus on that, I'm not going to watch that. Sure, everyone's on their own path, but realistically, people who are spiritual are just taking a stand because they're aware. They're aware of all the negative things that are happening out in this world, and they're choosing not to focus on that. They're choosing to focus on the greater good and the highest good for all and all of humanity. And I absolutely feel like I want to elevate all of humanity on this earth and help to bring as much love and positivity into this earth as possible. And that is how I came to terms with this very spiritual term called light worker as being a part of my identity. And I was afraid of being judged and afraid of what people would say if I identified myself as being a light worker. But now more than ever, I just feel the call to be a light worker and hold this positive space for people to come to when they are trying to run away from all of the fear, so that there is a safe haven for people and safe energies out in this world for people to get to when they are feeling hopeless or desperate or fearful with everything that's happening in the world. Yes, that's absolutely happening, but there's so many positive things that are happening in the world too, and let's focus on the positive and not the negative. So I ask you, now that you better understand the definition of light worker and what that's all about, think about your day-to-day communications. Think about what you're sharing on social media. Think about what kind of energy you're putting out there into the universe. And do you want to be a shadow worker, or do you want to be a light worker? What kind of energy do you want to bring more into this world and have more meaningful interactions through that way, instead of the mindless interactions, which communicating through shadows is very mindless, right? We know the old adage of misery loves company, and so it's very easy to get trapped into that. But it takes a stronger person to rise above and focus on the positive and be a positive beacon for so many more people who are feeling frightened out there in the world. And there is a lot of fear, but we also need a lot of strength, and we need a lot of courage, and we need a lot of light and we need some more light workers. So on that note, please pay attention to what kind of energy you're putting out there and what kind of energy you do put out there versus what kind of energy you want to put out there, and just make sure that those two are aligned. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you again soon.